Are we?
You're live in theory.
In theory.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Wait. Okay, now from the beginning.
Well, sorry we got a few minutes behind. The food truck broke down on the way to the gig. But hopefully you guys are actually tuning in to our YouTube channel this week like we were supposed to do last week. We are not banned, and we are coming to you live again from our studios here in Monroe, Ohio. Welcome, everybody, to Foodtrucker Magazine. We got a pretty packed show for you tonight. We've got special guests on from everything that we're going to be discussing about Ohio's laws when it comes to fire suppression systems in mobile units. And this is eventually going to, I think, probably spread across the country to all states. We will be talking with somebody that has that kind of knowledge. Tony Wethington is joining us tonight in studio. So, and then a little later on, we're going to get into the realm of insuring your investments. And we are going to pretty much cover everything that we can possibly cover, from our local insurance, farmers insurance agent here in Cincinnati with us tonight, James Hobold.
How you doing?
And then we also will be bringing on Joel Paprocki from Texas, who has the company Insure My Food. And then around the 8 o'clock hour, we'll be interviewing with Chris Van Leeuwen from Veracity and talk a little bit about the food liability insurance program. So with me tonight in the studio, I've always got my trusty sidekick, Food Truck Fritz here, and then my technical advisor, the wizard behind trying to get us on the air tonight is our friend the gnarly gnome. And I don't know, dude. I think we're going to have you on for probably one more Tuesday because, as you can tell, we were a few minutes late, but we were having some technical issues with YouTube. It just was not kicking in for us to go live. So, but we're here, so that's all good. So we want to start off tonight because I've been working with Tony from so it's MCOR, right, which is the parent company. And then SA Community. So explain that. What? Explain that to everybody.
So MCOR is obviously a conglomerate of groups of companies, if you will. So they're the parent company. So we are a sister or a lower level company. They purchased us out. We were a standalone about 9 years ago, and then they purchased us up and brought us under their umbrella, so to say. So
all right. So somebody got paid a shit ton of money for them to buy.
We're sister companies. It's actually Mr. Comunale. His name's still on the truck, even though it's an MCOR company. But we're sister companies with Vioxx, DeBraw. There is locally they're Dalmatian. So so we got quite a few companies under the umbrella, so to say.
So you have worked with us pretty much from day one when we started the fabrication side of things, installing the fire suppression systems. And just in case you guys are out there considering having a fire suppression system put into your truck, at some point, I think Ohio, I have spoken with Columbus, and I've had some conversations with the fire chief, and he has indicated that it will become a necessity for all food trucks in the state of Ohio to have a fire suppression system put in their vehicle if they are running anything that's grease-laden, such as a flat-top griddle that runs propane-based fryers. Anything to that effect is going to require a fire suppression system above and beyond the Class K fire extinguisher. Correct. Is that how you understand it?
That is correct. So the NFPA 17A is specific to wet chemical systems, the restaurant systems.
So let's back up for the food truckers that are just now getting into the business. What does NFPA stand for?
It's actually National Fire Protection Association. So when you stated earlier, Ohio, this is actually a national standard. So it's not just Ohio standard. It's the national standard that, the North America has put in place. So there are different versions, if you will. So we have, a 13 version, a 17 version, a 21 version. Now, obviously we're in 2021. So each state, where the difference is, chooses to adopt which version, if you will. So some states may be on the 2013 version, and then some states may, enforce the 2021 version, which we're just into 2021 now.
So do you see in the future where everybody's just going to have to catch up at some point and be on the same year?
It's no different than, no, I wouldn't say that. So here's where there's oddities even inside of a state. So let's say just down the road, the city of Blue Ash. May be more strict, and they may say, okay, well, locally we want to enforce what's in the 2021 version, even though Ohio revised code may be going by the 2017 version.
Right.
So, you're going to have oddities depending upon where you're operating. You may run across a authority that states, hey, this is what we require. And you may also on top of that. So when I say AHJ, I don't mean to get too technical. That's authority having jurisdiction. There are multiple authorities having jurisdiction. That could be the local fire department in your city. That could be the state fire marshal. That could be the insurance guy who has the rider on your food truck. So there's a lot of hands that could be the authority that states, I want you to get this system.
Right. So coming from the standpoint of insurance, obviously the rates would be cheaper if you were more protected inside your vehicle with a fire suppression system.
Yes, obviously. And also different insurance companies require different levels of fire suppression systems, depending on what kind of policy you want. But one of the things I wanted to point out is when you talked about jurisdiction, business could be based in Hamilton, Ohio, but you're doing a show in Franklin County. Their requirements might be more strict than Hamilton County. So you go up there and they're going, well, you don't have the right suppression system. You can't participate. And you've already paid your fee, XYZ.
Yep.
So you always want to make sure you are always at the most strictest level.
To say, as a company standpoint, that's what we try to do. We go by the latest and greatest, whether that's what's enforced or not. It's what's going to become. So you might as well do it now.
So, I mean, a lot of the, and this is what I try to explain to people who come to us to have their vehicles fabricated, is that it behooves you. It's kind of like, let's say, making an addition to your house. It's kind of like building out your basement into a full basement, or adding a swimming pool indoor in the backyard. Whatever you do to your home now is going to increase the value of your home when you go to sell it. No different with a food truck or trailer. If you take the time and the money right now to put in a fire suppression system, not only are you protected, in the event that something happens on your truck, but if you ever decide to get out of the game and sell that truck, now that truck has a lot more value because it does have a current fire suppression system in it. So you guys install them as an independent third party. As a fabricator, we cannot tag and test those systems. And if I am speaking out of turn, I don't think I am, but I don't think there's any fabricator that can do that in-house unless they've gone through the certification to do that. And that is an extreme cost. So I don't see anybody really doing that. I see them outsourcing it.
No, that's what most companies do. It is a specific license. You do have to do continuing education. You do have to be up to date with all manufacturers and their local or their the most up to date currents and standards, if you will, equipment and whatnot. Again, you do have to be licensed, test into that, at least for the state of Ohio. All states are different there as well, but you are correct. Most fabricators job source that out.
So for you guys that are out there listening to tonight about fire suppression systems, here is the way that this was explained to me by legal counsel from the state fire marshal's office. And that is that fire suppressions at the current state in Ohio are not mandated. So what that means is that, like you said, a fire department in Blue Ash could interpret the current code in a different manner than, say, the fire chief down the street in, Monroe.
Exactly.
And so what happens is, because it's not mandated, there isn't a state guideline for everybody to follow, even though they've issued the guidelines from the state fire marshal's office to every single fire department in the state of Ohio. And it's all the same inspection process. It's all the same documentation. It is left open for interpretation by that local jurisdiction. And what happened when they first decided to do this and release these guidelines is that every single fire department looked at it as a money grab. In our opinion, in my opinion, and in my experience, each fire department said, well, if the city of Cincinnati inspects your truck, that doesn't necessarily apply here in Blue Ash, or that doesn't necessarily apply in Hamilton, or that doesn't so you're going to have to pay us, the $140 inspection fee too, if you want to come into Fairfield and set up and serve, or if you want to come into Blue Ash and set up and serve. Well, if you started thinking about, like we have a truck in our association that probably travels the state more so than any other food truck in the state of Ohio, called the Wicked Lobster. If they had to pay an individual fee for every single county and jurisdiction that they go into to have their truck inspected by a fire department in that local jurisdiction, you're talking upwards of $5,000-$6,000 a year just in fees to pay fire departments all over the state.
It'd have been cheaper just to do it, get it installed and be protected on your equipment as well.
And so what we have been lobbying for with the state of Ohio and going back and forth with their legal department is please mandate this. Make it a law that every truck has to adhere to these guidelines. And that way, that guideline, if you're a recognized fire department in the state of Ohio and you tag it, it's no different than the health department. So if you get inspected by the health department right now in the city of Cincinnati and they give you a sticker saying you're good to go for 12 months until you come back for a reinspection, that same certificate applies anywhere in the state of Ohio. And I'm trying to get the fire department to do the same thing. Make it a flat fee, whether it be $150 or $200 for an annual inspection. If that fire department is recognized by the state of Ohio as a legitimate fire department, then that sticker should apply anywhere you go. Now, granted, every time that there's an event, the health department will come in and do spot inspections. And I totally agree with that. For safety's sake, especially when you're around large crowds and audiences, it is beneficial, I think, not only for the patrons that are going to that event, but for the food truck owners themselves to make sure that they're operating in a safe manner in a large capacity audience. So what I'm trying to do is get the state of Ohio to just mandate it, just make it a law, so that we can all follow the same guidelines. Every fire department has the same guidelines. And if you get inspected once, you get passed, permitted, and you can operate anywhere in the state of Ohio, but you're still subject to spot inspections, especially at festival events. And I think it's that simple. But being the way it is, trying to get people to, act upon that and trying to get them to realize it's that simple, is like pulling teeth. So it has been almost I want to say 14-month process since I had the first email conversations with them about this. They did have a seminar here in Cincinnati with all the fire department local jurisdictions here in Southwest Ohio. And out of that came pretty much nothing. It was all saying, yeah, we agree with these guidelines. These laws should be the ones that we follow. But then when everybody left, it was like, well, we're still going to charge our own fee, and you're still going to have to be subject to our, it's almost like I don't know what you want to call it, a peacock syndrome, where everybody wants to raise their feathers out, hey, my fire department jurisdiction is better than yours, it's like, whatever. And you're talking to a guy, I'm coming from a family history where my family served on the Cincinnati Fire Department for, it's going on 4 generations, So my grandfather, my dad's dad served on the fire department. My dad served on the fire department. His brother's on the fire department. My cousins are in the fire department.
That's great.
They asked me, if I wanted to go on to the fire department. I said, hell no. I ain't running into a burning building. That's not my forte, man. That's like, I got other things I'm going to do. So, but anyways, I think if we could just get it standardized and make it simple, it'll be beneficial for everybody. So, But going back to what you guys have done for us, as far as installing these fire suppression systems. So there's two ways that you can order. One, I think you guys represent what is called the Buckeye fire suppression system. So you want to talk a little bit about the difference between that system and like a KID system or an Ansel system?
Well, we can install them all. We are distributors with Ansel and Buckeye both. I happen to like Buckeye's system. They have better coverages. It's more cookie cutter, let's just say, instead of being, a specific this, a specific that. It has to be a specific way. With the food truck application, with the way you're limited in space, you're limited in heights and things like that, the Buckeye seems more flexible in my mind. So that's why we targeted that for this application and doing it in food trucks.
Right.
So they've been around for quite some time. And like I said, a lot of the newer innovations that they've had with regards to cabling rather than having to have conduiting and things like that. So, the flexibility of getting around things that go in a food truck.
Oh yeah, and you've gone around them.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It
For
makes
that.
it makes it easier,
It's
cleaner.
pretty tough sometimes,
So
but
yeah, it helps us, but it helps the fabricator as well.
Yeah.
You only got so much room to put in the back of one of those things. Everything you have to put in. So, and to me, in my mind, it was just the best fit and made most sense. And I like the product. That's what it boils down to.
So you've done both systems for us.
Mhm.
We have predominantly ordered our hoods through Hoodmart.
Mhm.
So if you're out there shopping for a hood, you can check out hoodmart.com. They have both pricing for the hood itself and then the hood along with either, is it kitty or kid?
It's kidding.
Kitty.
Some people pronounce it whatever.
I don't know. It's KIDDE. I
You
just
got
call
it.
it kid. So kitty. But there's a, I'll leave that one alone. But there's a kitty fire suppression system and then there's Ansel. So what's the difference between the two?
Really, in all honesty, the solution and design, the parameters that they can operate in, so some may be a little more strict. I mean, I'll be honest, Ansel is the Cadillac of fire suppression systems. That's the name that's been around forever. They're the leader, if you will. They actually also, the Ansel group owns Pyrochem, which is another hood suppression manufacturer as well. Their coverages aren't as great. Their spotting of their nozzles and things like that aren't as flexible. They've made some changes in the last 4 or 5 years that they've combined the Pyrochem and Ansel product to be flexible between each other. I just find that Buckeye's more sleek. Their coverages are better. Their spotting of the nozzles are more flexible. So, depending upon your hood location, where that appliance is going, things like that, I have more ability to place it somewhere odd than the standard application to still cover the appliance, but not be obstructing the end user, really. So, in all honesty, I mean, you might have a little bit of difference in the fluid they use. It's potassium-based fluid, so everybody out there, it's kind of salt solution, if you will, that they use. And the way it operates, it hits the grease, it kind of foams up, so it prevents air getting to the fire, which is part of the fire triangle. Or B, it reduces the heat as well. It allows it to cool down. Those are the main things in this application that you need to have done if a fire does occur on or around your appliance.
What do you think if you have a fire suppression system installed? What has to go on behind the baffles in order for that to trigger?
So everything's pretty much either one of two things they call manual activation or automatic activation. Manual activation is you guys see the fire. There's a pull station that comes with the system.
Mhm.
You pull it, it operates the system and allows it to do its thing.
Right.
Manual operation, that can happen whether you're there or whether you're not. Like you said, you don't want to run into a fire. You see a fire, you want to run. That system has a heat link behind the air filters. And when it gets to a certain temperature, there's a temperature rated solder in there. So, let's say we think that's going to be a 360 degree, link that needs to be there. Well, it'll probably activate it around 280 degrees. Well, that probably means that, that range or something's right around 450 degrees before it's actually going to activate. So it's literally heat. So the solder melts, separates the link, and then that's what causes the system activate.
So, right, I've never seen one go off.
We can make that happen.
But
if you want.
I did
No.
shoot off a fire extinguisher
No.
in an apartment one time, and I can tell you what,
Well,
it took us 3 days to clean that thing up.
It's messy.
yeah. Well, before my insurance career, I owned and operated restaurants
Here
for
we go.
25
Oh, there
years.
you go. You've seen it.
And
Sure.
I've been the recipient of
Oh, no.
2 fire suppression systems fall. One was because the hood guys that clean the
Hood cleaners.
Yep. forgot to take the tarp off the hood.
Oh,
So right in the
no.
middle of lunch rush, we're just cooking. All of a sudden,
Mm.
so what just happened?
Yeah.
Well, what just happened is 3 days worth of cleaning and the board of health
Oh,
inspection.
yeah.
Is what happened.
Yep. It's mandatory. I will tell you, it used to be powder systems that were there back in the
The
day.
first one was a powder one.
Those made much more mess than the new wet ones. The wet's still mess, but yeah,
We were finding dust in the dining room for years.
I'm sure.
Yep. So we got a call. Let's see if we can get this caller on the line real quick and see what their question might be. For you guys that are out there, we have a couple of guests that'll be calling in tonight, which is why we haven't been advertising the number for phone-ins. But if you do decide you want to call in, do we have our caller on the line? Yes. Who's calling?
Yeah, this is Joel with Insure My Food.
Oh, hey, Joel. It's Tone. Hey, you want to hold on for a few minutes? You're going to be coming up here in about 5.
Sounds great.
All right, bud. Hang on just a second. All right. So that is Joel coming on from Food Truck Insurance, based out of Texas. But we're going to get on to onto our insurance topic here in just a second. So before we get out of here, let's talk a little bit about pricing because it seems to be the one thing that stops everybody from putting a fire suppression system in.
Mhm.
Right now, it's not mandated, so we don't have to have it. I'd rather spend $210 on a Class K fire extinguisher
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to spending $2,500 on a fire suppression system. So if you go on the hoodmart.com, you can price out your hood and you can price out your fire suppression system. However, that does not include the pricing for your fabricator to install your hood and for someone like Tony to come in as a third party and actually install either the Buckeye or the Kitty or the Ansel system and charge it, tag it, and make it legal. And then you actually have to come back and get it updated. Is that right?
Yeah, every 6 months they need to be inspected. That's part of the NFPA and manufacturer requirements as well to stay compliant with probably any state that you're in that you'll have the system.
So do you see the difference between like a brick and mortar solution and a food truck solution being much difference in the cost factor?
Yeah, I'm going to say that your brick and mortars, typically, if you're talking installation or inspection costs, they're going to be typically more because their hood systems are usually more. They're more elaborate. They're bigger. So
Yep.
the amount of appliances,
space,
the size
more
of the
appliances.
hood, all that
Yep.
factors into the design of the system.
More nozzles. Yeah.
Yep, you got it. So more fluid you got to
Mhm.
dump because there's more there. So, most of your hood trucks, trailers are constrained to a specific size of hood, usually 10 foot or less.
Mm-hmm.
You might have a little bit bigger ones here and there, but for the most part, they're about 10 foot or less. So, they're pretty, I don't want to say uniform, but the cost is about the same no matter what they're. But brick and mortar are typically more. I can go anywhere from Wendy's that has a 4-foot hood to Carrabba's that has a 45-foot hood. So,
Wow. Yeah.
Right.
they're different no
Big
matter where you're at.
Mike actually had a question. He was trying to figure out, did you say that the mandate for the fire suppression was 2021 or they're looking at it to be 2021? I told him yes right out of the bat.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mike, if I jumped the gun, but
So
it's better to have it than not have it.
we have been told that it is going to be mandated at some point.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
the fire department, marshal's office in Columbus indicated that it could be as soon as 2021.
Okay.
However, you might have shed some insight on that because you recently
I
found.
would
some
say the
stuff.
newest version of the 2021 NFPA for NFPA 96, which covers ventilation hood standards,
Mhm.
and then 17A, as I referred to earlier, is for wet chemical suppression systems. They both kind of cross-reference each other. And now in actual 96, it referenced that it shall. So for any of you that know the code, a should is a recommendation and a shall is a requirement.
Better get it done.
It is now a shall. So that's why I was saying earlier, until somebody really adopts the latest and greatest of version 2021 and walks away from the 13 or the 17 that they're abiding by now.
Right.
It's not mandated, but if it's there and it's accepted now in the latest and greatest, I'm going to say it's going to be sooner than later. Let's put it that way.
So, Mike, to answer your question, yes, you will have to put in an ANSEL system either this year or next. So, as much as I'm always trying to find ways to save our food truckers money, especially on the fabrication side of things, because, some fabricators out there charge a boatload of money to do pretty much the same stuff we do. We just find different ways to do it in which it's a lower cost. But the one thing I would not chintz on is getting a fire suppression system put into your mobile unit if you're having it built out from scratch, because once you build that unit out and then you try to go back and retrofit it,
Yeah.
I was getting ready to say that the cost is going to be
the cost
more.
is going to be a hell of a lot
We
more.
can do it. We can do it.
Because now you have to take everything down off the walls. You have to work around. It is just a royal pain in the butt. So if you're getting it done from the get-go, just do it right. And that's no different than anything that you spend money on, whether it be, your home remodeling in your basement or whatever. You want it done right, and you want it done right the first time.
And you get what you pay for.
And you do
absolutely.
get what you pay for.
And fire suppression, you don't skip. You just don't. You go with it. You put it in your system, no matter what you got going on.
That's
If you don't have it, if
life-safety.
you food truckers are out there and you're running grease, you're running propane, you don't have this stuff.
Yeah.
Well, it's life safety.
We have a problem.
But it
And if
also, your insurance guys, it's going to mitigate loss on
Oh,
property.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, think about too, your K5, where is it? You don't even know where it is. And when there's in the middle of a fire and you're in the middle of working because you got 25 people deep, you're trying to search for that. I really have that auto system just drop that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I'm going to
Absolutely
take
agree.
Joel off. Joel, you there? Hopefully he's still there.
There we go.
We're going to bring you in on the conversation, my friend, because I think we're going to try and parlay our first half hour conversation about, fire suppression systems, what it does to mitigate, obviously, insurance fees, and just bring you in on the conversation so you can join us instead of sitting there on hold in, dead land.
That'll work.
So obviously you have your own business and it's been very successful. Insure My Food, you are a partner referral for us from the Queen City Mobile Food Truck Association. We've had you as a referral for, I don't know, going on 3 years now, I think. But we were talking, about the fire suppression system. You cover pretty much all the states around the country. So what kind of issues are you running into in different states, or have you run into in different states?
Yeah, I think it is a evolving topic with fire suppression. So from just dealing with customers around the country, and even here locally, I run the Austin Food Trailer Chamber, and there's more and more pressure from whether it's the cities, counties, or states to force trailers and food trucks to have fire suppression, and some of them are obviously considering grandfathering in because it is a large cost. But I'm always seeing the trend go towards kind of the California model, where there's more and more regulation on food trucks, and obviously more costs involved with that as well for the installation of those systems.
What is it about California? Everybody hates California that don't live in California, but they set the precedent for everything in the country.
They sure do.
Hey, I don't know what the deal is with that. It must be
Yeah,
all.
they have, yeah. And in their defense, a lot of insurance works because of all these regulations. So we're able to offer, insurance companies are able to offer coverage because, health codes are being followed. We know consistently across all the food trucks and food trailers. So with, some of the things they put in place are across the board, kind of helping the whole ecosystem, even though there are, they're a pain in the butt when you're going to get inspected, et cetera.
So do you think there should just be a single national standard that says, hey, if you run propane in your truck, you have to have a fire suppression system?
I think if you ask the fire departments, they'd probably say yes. I hesitate a little bit because each area is so different. If you have a a fire in a large city, the property damage should be much larger than if you're in a rural area. Less risk there. So, I hesitate a little bit, but it would obviously make some things easier.
So coming from your standpoint, James, he's our local insurance agent here with Farmers. You have a couple of, I think of our truck members. It's my personal phone. I'll turn that off. You have a couple of our trucks under your umbrella. Do they, or have you asked, or have you kind of told them that you need to, is the rate cheaper?
Yes and no. So, insurance guy, we always got to cover both bases.
There we go.
Is that the same for you, Joel? Yes and no.
Yeah, I have 15 of the members here that we have on our books. Some of them were with Farmers and some of them are not now, because when their policies were originally written, Farmers wasn't as stringent with the requiring the UL 3000 fire suppression system in all food trucks, no matter what, if even they have grease or not, they were requiring it. So you had to qualify to be part of their BOP program, which is the most sophisticated insurance program for food trucks. And then I have about 9 other carriers that I use that don't require those. As long as they have the K5 that meets the standard of whatever county, city, or state, then they're good to go. But the policy isn't as comprehensive as a BOP policy. Most of those are going in the FLIP program or the GL program or a modified program.
Okay.
And then pricing wise, if you do have a 3000, Ansel system or, the Kitty, whatever system is out there, you do get a significant discount because again, it is protection of loss of life, loss of equipment, loss of food. And when you're in a food truck, you ain't got no place to go.
Yeah.
You're kind of stuck.
So, Joel, you guys have a number of different, I would say, platforms or levels, if you will, of insurance that can cover pretty much everything from a pop-up tent vendor to a full-blown, state-of-the-art commercialized modular kitchen unit. So how do you guys determine? I mean, obviously with a pop-up tent, there's risk in the same manner that there is on a modular kitchen or a food truck. How do you guys determine, what that's going to be on your end?
Yeah. And you mean as far as like cost and coverages, how that differs? Yeah. So a lot of it, general liability has a lot to do with sales. So the more you're selling, the more chance for an accident, a customer to get sick or slip or fall. So sales would be the driving factor between all of those. But then once you distinguish the different types of business, for example, a food truck is driving on the road, you have auto liability, which can be the largest risk for a mobile food vendor is the actual driving, not serving food, compared to a pop-up tent vendor, which, probably not as driving as much, maybe just taking their personal auto to a farmer's market. And so they don't have that as large of auto exposure. So there's different coverages needed. And then but the commonality is the sales will drive the liability premium between all of those.
Well, I mean, how do you determine that? Because, and this is playing devil's advocate, but, some food trucks have gotten really good at hiding their income and their sales.
So,
what do you mean?
And I deal with food businesses in general. It's always been the case with restaurants as well. Well, the trick there is there's a few issues. I mean, from the insurance perspective, there's policies like a business owner policy that can include loss of income. And you have a claim and the insurance carrier is asking, okay, well, we need to reimburse you for your loss of income. Can you send us your reports and receipts for your accounting? And you shoot yourself in the foot from that perspective. And then just from overall business perspective, there's no way to sell the business in the end if you're not actually tracking, or there's no way to plan, see ahead financially. So, I do agree that's somewhat common, but in the long run, I feel like it shoots yourself in the foot for many reasons.
Yeah. That's true. I mean, but this comes from the 10% thing that a lot of, I guess event producers would ask for from food trucks, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we'll do the 10%."
Yeah.
We made $400 tonight.
Yeah, that's probably a whole other conversation. You guys probably had a show on, I'm sure, about those event promoters and things like that and those contracts.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's always been, kind of nice to know that you are there. We've always had a link over to your business page so people can kind of, ask you for quotes or this, that, and the other. But I can say that when I actually had my mobile unit, I had my insurance through you. And I think it was, I don't know, there was probably half a dozen times during the course of that first year that we had our mobile unit where you had to have somebody added as additionally insured. And so for those of you that are out there listening tonight, who aren't familiar with insurance, who aren't familiar with additionally insured means, I'll just give you, well, actually, I'll just let Joel explain it. Go ahead, Joel.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. So additional insureds, very common. And like you said, there'll be, on average, you might do 15 per year per customer. Obviously, code's changed a little bit of that, but they get requested by landlords, events, other people, events that you do business with. And what they're asking to do is to add them on your policy alongside you, meaning there's a certain element of risk that you bring to them by being associated with them. So if someone, for example, were to get sick from your food at an event, the attorney just one-on-one is going to sue you and anyone else in relation to that event, your landlord, your commissary, et cetera. So a way to mitigate some of that risk is what they're doing is asking you to list them as an additional insured. And so very common, doesn't benefit you. So you don't proactively want to add, say, like I'm going to an event, you don't proactively add them. But if they do ask you to add them as additional insured, most policies designed for mobile food vendors, all the policies we have, there's no additional charge to do that. It's all built into the policy. But it's an important factor in order to operate your business. And one of the things we've done recently, I guess in the last 3 months, we've created a client portal with an iPhone app that all the certificates can be generated 24/7, as well as managed and downloaded, et cetera. But we're always here as well as a full service agency to help process those, because some of them can get pretty technical from time to time as well.
Well, that's kind of what I was leading into, is that, when I was with you and had my insurance through you, obviously we did, I think it was Oktoberfest, Taste of Cincinnati, just a number of different large scale events where you had to have additionally insured added to your policy. And with a simple email or a phone call, within, hell, I don't know, it was probably, 10, 15 minutes, I'd have the policy on my phone. I'm like, sweet, that didn't take long at all, So for those of you that are out there, that are looking to have insurance, obviously, James here is with farmers and he's in our local market. So he's kind of a, meet in person, touch field type person that's, there's your agent. But there's also, people like Joel, and we've done some business with the guys up in Dayton called the Food Truck Insurance guys, and so there are people that specialize in insuring your investments. So whether you're a cart, whether you're a pop-up tent, a trailer, a food truck, modular kitchens, these pods are becoming more and more popular. Food parks are springing up here in Cincinnati. So whatever your insurance needs are going to be, you need to get insured, because if you go and invest all this money and all this time and all this effort into, building your mobile operation, and then just you don't know what the hell is going to happen. You can walk out, the front door and get hit by the proverbial bus. You just don't know. And if you don't have that insured, you just lost everything.
Mm-hmm.
Correctly.
Yeah. So I highly recommend that, you get in touch with somebody. And this is the reason why we're covering this tonight, because next week's episode, we're going to get into why you should have insurance. Obviously there's the common knowledge of why you should have it, but we're going to be getting into speaking to event producers and those types of people. You cannot get into an event large scale here in Cincinnati unless you have insurance and can put them on as additionally insured. In doing so, though, my confusion, I guess, from, I just do it because they asked for it. And, Joel did it, and there you go. But what does that do for me as a business owner? I mean, what does that additionally insured actually do if something happens at the event?
So it doesn't do much for you specifically other than getting you into that event, if you look at it from that perspective. But if you look at the bigger picture, it basically creates a functioning, system where they're able to invite you to that event. Otherwise, the risk might be too big for them to say, hey, come on here. And if no one had insurance and they weren't additional insured, they would themselves completely exposed to any loss you might cause. So it's really protecting the event person, saying, hey, I know, I'm inviting you to this event, and potentially something could happen that you caused, and I could be sued over it. But in order for me to accept that risk or mitigate it, I'm going to have you, the insurance company, list me on your policy so that they are protected. And if you get sued and they get sued, your insurance company is defending you alongside them for that loss. And so that's really what's happening behind the scenes there.
So if somebody goes to a large scale festival, and let's just say there's, 40 trucks there, and then somebody gets sick from food poisoning from one bad apple out of the 40, obviously there's some kind of tracing method to figure out where that came from. I mean, that's an ongoing process in and of itself. But I mean, what happens to you as a food truck owner operator? Say that's a 6-month or 8-month investigation scenario that takes that long, and no other event will have you, at their event until that's resolved. Do you get covered for that loss of income if something like that happens? I mean, how does that work? That's just a scenario. I don't know.
Yeah. So the first, I kind of dig through that kind of one step at a time. The first part of that is, they don't know who did it. The nice thing about that is your insurance policy. If someone say, okay, we're suing all 40 of you and the event, well, you can turn that over to your insurance company, and insurance will also pay legal defense outside of the liability limit. And so they're going to take that burden off you, and they're going to explore it, and they're going to say, okay, you are negligent for this. You're not. They'll have the duty to defend that, so you can take that off your plate. As far as like other events, I don't foresee that you would be locked out of other events. Maybe there's news coverage, and people are like, oh well, maybe it was one of these trucks, and they're real hesitant. It's a severe type of loss, so there's potential there I could see for loss of income. But the type of policies that cover loss of business income, they're property policies, meaning there has to be a direct physical loss to the business. So your trailer's damaged, your freezer's damaged, there's a fire, there's vandalism. So in that particular scenario, that would not trigger loss of income because there's no physical damage. And that's the same reason, during what's happened with COVID, some businesses, whether you're restaurants, food trucks, et cetera, all businesses were like, well, we have been shut down. In COVID in itself is not, that's not a direct physical damage. And that's the same as this example, just to kind of build on that a little bit.
So how long have you been doing this, Joel?
So I've been an insurance agent 17 years, and the last 9 or 10 been focusing on food businesses in this area.
Well, you say in this area, you're in Texas, but I mean,
well, yeah, I meant the niche, I should say, not like geographical area, but
right.
the area.
I was like, because I know trucks that got your insurance, and they're all over the country.
in this area,
yeah,
this side of the
do
world.
it most yeah, I didn't word that correctly yet, but that niche.
All right. Well, listen, I appreciate you taking the time to call in tonight, talk with some of our listeners and give them, some heads up about, what you guys can do at Insure My Food. Now, is it the only thing that you guys focus on, or do you have other aspects of your insurance business as well? Yeah,
so I focus solely on food businesses on a national basis. locally, I'll do a little bit more, and I merged my agency with a large local agency to have access to all the resources that comes with that. So I do primarily focus on food businesses, but our office in Austin with what's called Wharton Insurance Services also does all types of businesses, contractors, etc.
You're in Austin?
That's correct. Yep, Austin, Texas.
Road trip.
Road trip.
And we might just had more snow than you guys thus far this year. We had 2 inches the other day, which is unusual.
That is kind of weird.
Yeah, but still, it's a party town. I don't think they'll be doing South by Southwest again this year. Yeah, I mean, with all these events canceling, and I mean, we've already had, I don't know, half a dozen events already canceled, this year, it's quite unfortunate because I think everybody was hoping to get past that, December 31st, 2020 date. And it's like, all right, turn on the electric, let's go, and unfortunately the news is rolling in and trickling in, each day somebody else cancels something else. I mean, we just had Bunbury Music Festival cancel here in Cincinnati, and that's always been a pretty good moneymaker, for food trucks. I mean, your average truck down there, will make a buku amount of money over that 3-day period, but now that's gone. So I'm assuming that's the same in Austin and Texas and everywhere else.
Yeah, it's been interesting to that point because it does seem like every area is affected a little bit differently. Austin's a lot of stationary food trailer parks, so the ones that could ramp up to go have not doing great but have survived. But obviously, if you're primarily relying on events, then that's a huge hit to the business. And then a handful have actually found ways to exploit usually in smaller towns where there's not as many restaurants to really, double or triple their sales if they have that opportunity to park somewhere and really fill kind of like a food desert type situation.
Well, I have to say again, thank you for coming on. This is our second Foodtrucker Magazine podcast. So we started last Tuesday. This is our second one, and you're actually the first phone caller that actually made it on the air.
Congratulations, caller.
I feel pretty special, and congrats to you guys. This sounds like a pretty cool thing you're doing.
Yeah, we had some technical difficulties last week. but it sounds pretty clear now.
This week too, but we manage.
Well, good talking with you, my friend, and we'll stay in touch. All right.
All right. Thank you guys. Have a great day.
Yeah,
Thanks,
you too.
Good
Joel.
evening. Bye-bye.
All right. So that right there was Joel Paprocki from Insure My Food. There is a link on our website, Queen City Mobile Food Truck Association. It's qcmfta.com. If you go under partners, you'll find a link there. Same with James. We have a link to his agency right here. And so they're based up here in the Mason, Westchester, and Monroe area. So you guys you're over by Kings Island, right?
Right by the Beachwater Park. Yeah.
Yeah, by Beachwater Park. So there's a physical, actual location that you can walk in. And hang on just a second. That will be our next caller. So hang on just a second. We'll get back to you in about 5 minutes. All right. So yeah, tell us a little bit about farmers here local and, what you can and bring to the table for people.
Well, again, my name's James Hobold. Farmers Insurance is one of my brands with the food truck industry. Farmers actually owns a company called Craft Lake, which is one of the largest independent agencies in the country. So we have 35 other insurance companies that we have access to. So if a food truck doesn't qualify for one of the farmers projects, we have 9 other carriers that specialize in food trucks. We can go off food trucks as well. I mean, you can go as small as you're the, Susie Baker, who's working at, making cupcakes and selling them at Findlay Market.
So a college license type deal.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
You can cater an insurance policy to fit your exact niche. So you can whittle it down where you might only be paying $300 a year to do your pretty much farmers market, hit the festival market, because you really don't have a truck.
Mm-hmm.
You might have a van that's just taking your food there. You're setting up the pop-up.
Right.
You're doing what you need to do. And that's more following the line of like the flip insurance, where you're just kind of doing the food liability. The general liability is required by all the vendors and events, all the way up to, you got to full blown food truck and you're out there. I got one of our food truck guys that's with you guys, has a stationary stand as well.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that falls into a different category.
Right.
So that's one of the benefits that I have is
If they're not moving, if they're not mobile.
if they're not moving. Yeah, because
Which defeats the purpose of a mobile food truck, by the way.
except he's only there for 9 months, and then the other 4 months he's traveling. But so yeah, we can niche that.
So let me ask you this, and this is, I'm just going to throw this out at you because this is something that really ticks me off. Okay,
Here we go.
Here we go. So, as you know, Joel had mentioned the food truck parks that are all over, in Austin and Oregon and other states all around the country.
Yes.
Las Vegas, namely, has a huge pod park, and these pods they're modular. They're converted into modular kitchens, but by the very name of those, they are
Modular,
fabricated out of shipping containers,
which move
Which
at one
which
point.
are designed to be shipped around the world.
So they're mobile.
So they are completely mobile because all you have to do is put a forklift under it, lift it up, put it on the bed of a truck, and boom, away it goes.
but it's still stationary.
But in Ohio, for whatever reason, we cannot get them to recognize a shipping container as a mobile unit. They want to classify it as a permanent structure. And
A permanent
it is
mobile
not
unit.
a permanent structure. It is designed to be moved.
And there they are now.
And there's the state of Ohio. Hang on a second here. Let me turn this off. I probably should just leave this out in the. Yeah. Shut up, phone.
Technical.
Okay, decline button.
It's Judy. She needs eggs.
Yeah. So we have obviously when we started the Cove Food Park, we tried to get the city to recognize shipping containers as mobile units. No. Then we had the approach up in Hamilton at the Hamilton Hub project, which we're doing in conjunction with the guys at Hamilton Hub. And the first thing that we wanted to do was present to Hamilton, hey, how about doing something unique? The only one that was willing to change their laws, and this was when we did a consultation over in Covington for the Covington Yard, we suggested that instead of rotating food trucks, why don't you build modular units on this particular piece of property and outline them in a manner such that they could bring in 5 or 6 independent food purveyors and they could lease those modular units out. And you could rotate, every month, every 3 months, sign them up seasonally, sign them up annually, however you wanted to do it.
Sounds like it makes sense.
But it still made these units to the point where you could drive in a forklift, lift it up, put it on the bed of a truck, and move it out if you wanted to. So it is mobile. Why can't the state of Ohio get that through their thick heads?
Oh, you're asking us to have the politicians have common sense?
Well, I don't know. I can't understand why, why we can't get them to recognize the advantage of what building a state-of-the-art pod park would do for Ohio, not just for Cincinnati, not just for Southwest Ohio, but for the entire state. There is not a modular kitchen park or a modular park in Ohio that's built out of shipping containers because they just won't recognize them as mobile units. I think it's a money grab. I think they want to get as much money out of a situation as they can possibly get, And I think if you classify it as a permanent structure, now you have to go through your building department, your health department, your plumbing department, your zoning department, your engineering department. I mean, all the departments get money, And I think that's, I don't know.
Well, on this modular park, on these individual containers, how is water and electric getting to them? I mean, is it a permanent? Is it a permanent water thing you're just tapping into? Is it a permanent gas line you're tapping into? Or is every individual pod an individual island?
It's an individual unit, and what is supplied are pedestal scenarios, just like an RV
Just
park.
like an RV park.
Exactly like an RV park. So
Could you put it on skis?
Yeah, this is what
We could do it.
we could do it. Yeah, we could put wheels under the ski, and that would technically make it mobile.
We can put it on it. We can put the shipping containers on a trailer. People
Yes.
are doing that.
They will allow us to put a shipping container.
No, I'm talking like snow skis. Just
Yeah.
stick them underneath of it, like and, mashed into the ground. Like it's on skis, guys. It's mobile.
Yeah. No, they have told us that we can actually take the modular unit, affix it to a trailer, and it will be then considered a trailer. And
What if it doesn't move? What if it's just like a show thing?
Yeah, flat tires,
Yeah,
Wooden
just
wheel
rim.
tires on the
Wooden
side.
wheels.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Paint on it.
It's just if anybody out there is listening, is in tune with anybody that sits on any kind of state government board, pass this shit on and tell them get their head out of their you know what, and let's start to do something in Ohio that every other city, which is probably why we're always 20 years behind. I mean, when the world comes to an end, this is exactly where I want to live because we'll be the last to die. Anyways, I want to thank you, for being with us tonight, James. You're going to stick around. We're going to get on to a call with our next guest, which is Chris Van Leeuwen. He's with a company called Veracity Insurance, but he has a lot of expertise in the FLIP program. And for those of you that are out there familiar with the FLIP program, it is the Food Liability Insurance Program. And we're going to get on a call with him to talk about not just FLIP, but the overall insurance business, because they're, I guess, what you would consider for lack of a better term, a wholesaler when it comes to insurance policies. So they're the provider. But Chris started in the business in 1987. Built up his own business to a top 100 firm and left that to join Veracity, I think sometime around 2012 or so. And now he is one of the big dogs at Veracity's. And, everybody's kind of familiar with the FLIP program, but I think everybody that's in the food truck business has a misperception of the FLIP program. And the ones that I have spoken with, and it's probably been a dozen or so people, they always thought it was brick and mortar insurance, and it's actually the opposite. And so I wanted to reach out to them to bring them onto the program tonight to explain to them exactly what FLIP is, what it can do, and the types of policies. So Chris, welcome to the program. Glad to have you with us tonight.
Thank you. Nice introduction. It puts too much pressure on me, though.
You got a lot to live up to now. There you go.
a lot to live up to. I've been listening in, and both Joel and James have done a great job on explaining, the issues going on within the industry.
So, just to clarify, explain FLIP to everybody tuning in tonight.
Okay. The food liability insurance program was designed for kind of the smaller operations. It is a general liability policy. There is some small inland marine or property coverage that can come with that, but there's a cap on the gross sales, and so we're really targeting this niche, non-brick and mortar, a lot of individual based insureds. We're licensed in all 50 states. We have several partners, which seems like, Joel's one of our partners that sends business. Seems like James is another one that has used us a few times. So, I mean, in a nutshell, that's who we are. We're catering to the caterers, the private chefs, food vendors, food trucks, food trailers. So we try and cross the gamut here in the food industry. But again, it's really geared at the general liability policy, geared for smaller operations that have less than, probably 200,000 in sales.
Okay. So I talked to Troy, which I guess is your boss, and he said you were kind of like
my boss.
You were kind of like along the lines of Jim Carrey, but I still have yet to hear any of that humor. Where's that? He said you weren't going to be stodgy like an insurance guy.
Troy lies. Troy lies.
That was his pitch. That was the sales pitch.
So,
that's all right.
You're asking me serious questions.
So I have to ask, people are listening and they're always fearful of, what the cost is going to be. Obviously it's individualized, as Joel had said, based on sales, but let's just say you got a startup who doesn't have any sales. How do you assess what that cost is going to be for that particular vendor? Is it just whether or not it's a mobile tent, whether it's a trailer, whether it's a truck, the amount of equipment, whether it's propane, fire suppression system installed? I mean, how do you come up with a number?
So we just make it up as we go.
I was just getting ready to say.
People do. It's just like, oh, that
Look
sounds
at-
good. $299, man. That's
Couple
it.
$100.
How much
So,
can you afford?
No, I mean,
What's
yeah,
your
yeah.
budget?
yeah. What's your budget? And then that's like a car sale.
That's the first thing us fabricators ask.
Yeah. So no, it comes down to if this is a new startup and they have no idea what their gross sales is, we actually have a banded rate, and so we have a rate for 0 to 50,000 in gross sales, and a rate for 50 to 100,000 in gross sales, and up to 200,000 in gross sales. And because unlike a business owner's policy, which has been referred to earlier today, that has the property and the business income and all those kind of things, there's a lot more property values that are taken into consideration in addition to the general liability gross sales rate to come up with, a total annual premium, where ours is just like, look, if you fit within this band, it's $299. You fit within this band, it's $399.
So what band is $299?
I want
Very
that
small.
I
band.
want that band.
0 to 50,000. Yeah, 0 to 50,000.
Never mind. I don't want that band.
Yeah. So,
Well, I mean,
it's very
$299 a month is only
Not a month. That's a year.
a year.
or a year. I mean,
Yeah.
what's that breakdown?
I would take it at a monthly if somebody. I mean,
Well, I mean, we part of our research is subscribing to all these Facebook groups, that deal with the food truck industry, and there's constantly these questions on there. Where do you get insurance? How do I get insurance? What should I get insurance to cover? This is what I'm paying. This is what I'm paying. And I look at some of the numbers that are out there on these message boards, and I'm like, Jesus, who are you insured by? I'm like, you need. So, which is kind of driving this whole conversation tonight, because when people ask that question, we simply want to send them a link and say, hey, maybe you're talking to the wrong people. Here's some people you might want to be introduced to, what is the average policy? I mean, 0 to 50,000, you're saying $299, 50 to 100,000 is how much?
$399.
But then you add certain things into that customizes that policy, and the rate either goes up or down, or does it just go up?
It never goes down.
No,
It never goes down.
We appreciate the honesty here.
Yeah, we really appreciate you asking, but no. No, there are additional insureds we're talking about tonight. They're included within the food liability insurance program. It's automatic. We do have a trailer endorsement that actually extends the general liability to a trailer while sitting stationary, which is a little bit unique.
What does that mean?
But, the general liability policy excludes auto, which trailers are included in the auto definition.
Mhm.
And so when it's detached from a power unit, from a towing unit, because it's usually the liability is extended to the trailer from the auto. But when the auto's detached from it, and it's just sitting stationary and you don't have any other insurance on it, if somebody, trips over the tongue, or an awning falls down, somebody cuts themselves, whatever it can be, that they cause some damage to somebody else, that trailer endorsement extends the liability to that trailer, and kind
I
of
get
removes that exclusion from it.
Hmm.
So
But that's
It's
not
just
included in
nice
the $299 though.
it is not.
That's going to cost extra.
That's an extra $1,000.
Bam.
I'm just,
There it is. That's what we were waiting on.
yeah, no, but to address, these Facebook people, it's hard to really start comparing because people going, I'm paying, $3,000 a year. It's hard to have each individual kind of go, well, how come you're getting such a good rate versus another person? Because geographically, those rates change in some circumstances, or they might have 2 trucks versus 1 truck, or 1 trailer versus no power units. And so there's varying, aspects of how rates are developed. So, somebody might post on there, oh, I got a $299 quote, and all of a sudden they're going, dang, I'm paying $2,000,
Right.
but two different risks. And so it's really hard to start saying, well, why does somebody pay more than the other?
So if you have and this is for people that are out there considering whether or not to buy a truck or a trailer.
Right.
Let's just say that you have a trailer and you have a tow vehicle. Is that considered one policy, or do you have two separate policies for each vehicle?
Now, you'd have one policy to cover the general liability aspect. You could actually have three. You could have what they call an inland marine policy to cover the trailer. And you could also have an auto policy, hopefully a commercial auto. I think that's another thing that,
don't say
it's another
hopefully,
topic.
tell them they have to.
You must.
Yeah, exactly. Because a lot of times a personal auto policy will not cover anybody using that auto in business use. But people will hook up their truck to a trailer, pull it out, get in a wreck. They actually could have some gaps in coverage. And so it's really important to talk to your auto carrier, whether it's a personal or commercial lines, and make sure you got coverage while you're using it for business.
Yeah, especially if your trailer's wrapped and it says tacos on the side. You're going, what? That's my personal taco bill. That's only for me.
Yeah, exactly.
I pull this kitchen everywhere I go. I love tacos.
I love
do that.
tacos. It's Taco Tuesday, by the way.
Just pull it behind.
So then,
I'm not going there.
yeah. So then you have a truck, which is in of itself. I mean, it's one unit, so you're only paying one policy, or?
Well, I mean, the auto policy is its own standalone coverage to cover that auto. Now, you could add, if you're on a commercial auto policy, you could add a trailer to it to get the liability and the physical damage to it, or on the auto policy. Or you buy a separate policy just to cover your trailer in that circumstance. So, as talked about earlier, you've got to identify these exposures of your business and start deciding how to plug the holes. You've got certain things that could cause you harm that you can get sued for, and you want to identify those and start plugging holes, or at least identify and go, yeah, I don't want to pay the premium to plug that hole. I'll just take the risk on my own.
Which is never a good idea.
Yeah, because it's like Joel talked about. Just the defense cost these days is pretty astronomical if you get brought into a suit. And our litigious society is, when you get sued, everybody's going to get sued. It's kind of like throwing that spaghetti bowl up on the wall. Let's see what sticks. Who's going to pay out? And a lot of companies just pay out these kind of, they sue you for $100, and you're going, okay, well, we'll settle for $35 because that's what's going to cost us anyway in the defense costs. And they pay this nuisance money out. And it's kind of sad, but that's just the reality of it. But that's why you have insurance to take care of these things.
Yeah, I'd rather go back to the 1950s when we were a pretty cool society back then,
Yeah, it really was. I mean, it's, even from I've been in the business for 30 years, but even in the 80s and early 90s, we weren't as litigious as we are now. That's for sure.
Yeah. So, okay. So let me throw a scenario out to you.
These are always scary.
Well, okay. I am a food manufacturer, and I actually am. I do have a product that we sell in retail, but coming from let's just say we have one member in our association that also does food manufacturing. They have a commissary kitchen. Obviously, that commissary kitchen carries their own insurance policy, but they make their own food product. They sell it out at retail. They have a food truck. They are going to be opening up a commissary brick and mortar of their own. And then they have their personal vehicle. So I get in my car. I drive over to my commissary kitchen. I get into an accident on my personal vehicle, but I was going to my commissary kitchen to do work for my business. That would fall under their regular car insurance policy, I'm assuming.
Damn, dude, that's like
you see that?
Hopefully you're taking notes to follow this one.
I was like, yeah, that's a loaded question because I mean,
Insurance guys are like
I'm trying to
politicians,
protect
man. I
myself
swear.
here, first of all.
Well, yes and no,
I thought you were going to
Tony.
say, so if the food is sold and somebody gets sick, that's an easier answer than, hey, whose car,
Well, and is
I don't
the
know.
car
Well,
person, is the
I guess
person
what
driving
I'm
the
getting at
car?
is can you develop a policy that covers this person's personal vehicle, their commissary, their food manufacturing, their food truck, and the build out and their new location where they're going to have their own restaurant? Is there a policy that you can put under one payment that says we got you covered on all aspects?
The
I'm gonna
Foodtrepreneur
say no.
policy.
I mean, it's you've got so many moving parts there. You're going to have an auto policy. You're saying you've got to build out, so you either got a builder's risk or a bot policy, and then you've got your general liability and product liability to cover the food. And so to say you can get one policy to do all that, I think would be very difficult.
Well, I
Now, I
guess
could
not.
get a policy for each one of these things.
Yeah, I mean, let's back up and let me clarify. Not one policy, but one company that can issue all the policies and make it under a single payment scenario.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, as long as an agency has the ability to, maneuver through all these different parts, sure, they can do that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, because we got into this conversation with these folks a while back, and I'm like, yeah, wouldn't it be nice to just say, hey, all my policies cover everything that I do, and it costs me, $300 a month or
Like
whatever.
a true bundle
Right.
business.
Yeah, like a bundled
cover
scenario where I don't have to
umbrella
send,
the entire thing.
I don't have multiple payments going out to 5 different, insurance providers. I'd rather have just one company give me all my insurance coverage for everything I do and let me just pay one amount. That way it's a fixed number and I know what that number is every month.
Right. You could have one agency,
Sure,
but
I
not
mean-
say one carrier.
Yeah, one agency. That's kind of the way.
Yeah. I mean, like James, he's saying I got, access to, I don't know what you say, 15 different insurance carriers, including farmers. And sure, I'm sure, any one of us could go and piece this together and create a package that would fill all these requirements.
Right.
As long as you're ready to pay for it.
That's right.
There
But I
we
mean,
go.
That doesn't include the $299.
That's not in that's not in my $299 per month.
maybe if
Yes,
we
it
went
does.
back to
per
the
month.
Per
month.
Yeah. Per month, sure. So
Well, tell me a little bit about Veracity. Because I was
Veracity is we have a couple parts there. We have a wholesale brokerage part that actually works with agencies nationwide. We dealt with almost 700, 800 agencies last year of people that placed business with us. But we have an underwriting department, and through that department, we create these specific programs like the Flip program. And so we're a program manager. We develop this out. We have an insurance company backing us, and we take it out to market. And like we said, we work with multiple agencies nationwide in addition to our online platform. So we're really we're an underwriting department that produces products and put them out to market in these specific niche industries.
So you go beyond just the food realm then with the Veracity product.
Yeah, Veracity. I mean, with a lot of our programs, we're doing like e-cigarette.
I'm
Company-
looking through their
CBD.
site. There's all kinds of stuff on it. You guys cover
Cannabis.
everything.
We do pet care. We do, massage therapists. So we find all these little niche areas, and we develop programs, and then market to those.
Wow.
Hmm.
That's
Sell
Do you cover podcasts?
they do now.
They do now.
Yeah,
$299 a year.
yeah.
Under
I
50,000
think
viewers.
it'll be slightly a hair higher than that, but not too difficult to do.
So outside of the insurance realm, what does Chris like to do?
Oh man, I'm usually an outdoors guy. A lot of fishing. Yeah, I spent a lot of time on in my boat and chasing fish all last year. I golf, hike, bike, both road, mountain bike. So just get out and do anything I can.
Nice.
I love being stuck indoors with pandemics and stuff. That's so much fun.
Good
Yeah.
time.
Speaking of pandemics, and we were bringing this conversation up, multiple
Is that a
times.
good segue?
Yeah, great segue. Multiple times last year, we had phone calls fielded. People were pissed, obviously, because they weren't getting their loss of income covered by their insurance policies. And there was never a definitive explanation as to why, other than it being an act of God or it was not written into their policy. I mean, if somebody had it written into their policy, which nobody foresaw COVID coming, to the, to what it's done to us now. But
right.
I mean, is there even a protection policy for something like that?
Not that I know of.
Say
I mean,
not-
months ago I
Not
thought,
yet.
Yeah, right.
not yet. I did see somebody trying to put a little program together out of Lloyd's of London. I haven't seen it come to market yet to give like $100,000 coverage or something for pandemic coverage. But I think what is important to understand is that even before the pandemic, most insurance companies put a contagious disease or virus exclusion on their policy. So those were there, and they're on most liability policies.
Was that on like page 67, item line
Subsection
92,
2,
subsection
appendix
3 or
A.
something like that?
Asterisk,
Page
asterisk.
80 of your 400-page document. Yeah, so it's just there's two things, and Joel kind of hit on it. In order for business income to pay out, you have to have a direct physical loss to the address that's on your insurance policy, and so you have that, and then you have a virus exclusion or a contagious disease kind of exclusion on the policy. So you got both of those issues, and there's been no direct physical loss to any location like a fire, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
People have come in and said, well, the virus was my direct physical loss, and they're coming back going, yeah, but you could, you disinfect it in 12 hours and you're up in business again. So it's really not a direct physical loss. There's a lot of court cases still out there right now. I know there's some companies that had to pay out that didn't have exclusions on their policy. Those are very few, but there's a lot of court cases right now where large restaurant chains are suing, trying to push that these should be covered losses. So we're just kind of seeing how that's going to shake out.
Wow.
Right. And also if they had a BOP policy and they
You guys
had
keep
a
mentioning, I'm going to back you up. What is a BOP policy?
business owner policy,
See how stupid I am?
it just means it's more comprehensive than a GL.
We did
general
say last
liability.
week there were stupid questions.
But if they have a business income rider in there, some of them have what they call dependent property coverage. And let's say you were in a fixed location and that fixed location was closed because of the state mandate. It had a 72-hour waiting period. You possibly could get in there. We've paid out some. The other one was event cancellation coverages.
Oh, that's
The
huge.
event
for
was
food.
canceled.
Wow.
That wasn't your fault. Now was it? Now you get in the legal battle, like
Now there.
he was saying earlier. Is COVID considered canceling the event? But our customer signed up to the event. They didn't sign up for anything else.
Right.
Mhm.
They canceled the event. Our customer did.
Well,
So they were covered because of
It's
that.
still farmers are still trying to figure this out because the customer didn't cancel it. The event canceled it. And they have event cancellation.
And really,
rider.
the problem is there's so many events canceled. It's not like, oh, one
Yeah.
town, here's some events that are canceled.
And in most cases, there's a $10,000 payout.
So here's a direct
Sweet.
example. Last night, okay, Ohio State, Alabama, national championship football game.
With no fans. Terrible.
Not just the fans. So I went out to the local wing place, got my wings sitting there, had me a zombie dust beer. My friend Arlie knows.
There's the plug for
in the
now.
house. So, but they kicked us out at 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock. Yeah.
And that's
gave you a period
because
to
of a
go, though.
mandate from the governor of the state of Ohio. So it's not the bar's, responsibility to stay open past 10 o'clock. They're not allowed. So that's loss of income for them because I would have stayed until the game was over. Well, maybe not because they got their asses kicked. But I would have stayed longer and I would have spent more money had they been open or allowed to be open. So whose liability is that? Who's that fall on? I mean, who can cover that?
DeWine.
DeWine?
We send him a bill.
Here you go.
But that's happening all over the country.
Yeah.
And so is that not considered a loss of income?
Outside of your control.
Well, I mean, by your definition, it is a loss of income, but there's certain things that trigger coverage. There's certain circumstances that have to happen in order for the policy to pay out. And a governmental, saying, hey, we have a mandate, everything shuts down at 10, that's not what we call a covered cause of loss or a covered peril. I mean, and so you can't go to an insurance company and say, hey, cover everything that might happen to my business. It's just impossible.
Right.
And we've never had this happen before, so we didn't know to insure it.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's why it's important, I think, to have conversations with an insurance advisor to say, hey, here's my operations, at least to become educated. Maybe there's nothing you can do about it, but at least you're going into it understanding that you have this exposure to your business. And so if you want to put money away for a rainy day, if you can, or whatever it is, but insurance policies aren't designed to cover everything. And if they did, they wouldn't be $299 or $500.
Right.
Or, you'd have.
We can cover more, but nobody ever wants to pay for it.
And they wouldn't be naming ballparks called Great American Ballpark.
Yeah.
That's one of our insurers.
And we love them. We do.
Actually, Great American is one of our carriers.
I know.
I
Mine too.
know. I know. I looked it up.
And we love Great American. If they want to sponsor the show, they're more
Great
than welcome.
American. You guys are awesome, and your building is
They got a
very
really
beautiful.
nice tower down
Yeah,
there.
your building is awesome.
Yeah,
we
do.
love you.
It's got a nice overlook of the ballpark, that's for
Yes,
sure.
of course.
Yeah, they have a tennis center in Mason. Yeah. Pretty nice.
Oh.
I was wondering where all my insurance money was going to. Well, listen, I appreciate you taking the time to come on. I mean, is there anything that you would recommend, suggest, or give advice to somebody who's just considering starting up and they have to get insured?
I really think, my biggest thing is just become informed. I think there's a lot of people out there running businesses, signing contracts they're not aware of what they're signing, buying stuff just to think, they're saying, oh, I'm just going to get this. Understand what you're getting and why you're getting it. I think that's, it's just like we talked about your auto insurance. Does your personal auto cover this or doesn't it? Because the hardest thing is when you have a claim and it gets denied, it's never a pleasant conversation to have with somebody. And a lot of people just assume things, and that's where we get in trouble. And so I think it's, if I were to give any advice, is just have some good conversations. Take the time to get educated on some of the things you may not be that you may not understand. What is an additional insured, which we talked about? Why do I need general liability? What's the difference between that and personal or property coverage and loss of business income? And most insurance professionals will have those conversations with you so that you can become informed. And I think that's probably the best thing you can do for your business.
Amen, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that information on the Flip website. So the address is, what is the web address? Let me pull it up real quick.
It is FLIprogram.com.
Okay. So I believe that under our partners page right now, we do have a link on our website, the QCMFTA.com website. Under partners, there is a link direct over to the Flips website, or you can pull it up, like Chris said, and do your research, figure out what it is that you need. It is an expense that you're going to have to include into your business plan. Actually, if you don't have it when you present that business plan to your bank, they would probably not consider a loan for you. So you need to make sure that that is something that they know you're insured and that you're covered. So, but Chris, I appreciate you and Troy agreeing to come on tonight, explain a little bit about, what Flip is and what you guys can provide. And it was great having you on the program tonight.
Appreciate the opportunity. You guys have a good night.
You
Thanks,
too, my
Chris.
friend.
Thanks, Chris.
And so there you go. That's Mr. Chris Van Leeuwen from Veracity and the Flip program. That gives you a little bit more insight as to what you need to do in order to protect your investment. We say something around here quite a bit in the fabrication side of things, that we build the home and you make it a house. And so, we might build you a really nice trailer and, your first day out, you might wreck it. So make sure that you've got that investment protected, and that you've got the right type of coverage that you need. So we have about 30 minutes left, and we're just going to get into some generalized conversation with Tony about a little bit more about fire protection, and James as well. But if you want to call in, the number is 513-480-2290. If you have a question while either one of these gentlemen are still here with us tonight, I'm sure they could answer it for you. Again, the number is 513-480-2290. We are live tonight on our YouTube channel. We are not on Facebook this week, thank God. We do have the freedom of speech here in the studio tonight, as long as it's maintained to the food truck industry. We can't go out beyond that. So the average cost, just so you guys know, and I was just looking it up today for somebody else. A hood system from Hood Mart is actually inexpensive. To put in a state-of-the-art hood with the baffles, with the lighting, excluding the fire suppression system, you're ranging in size from a 5-foot hood, which is pretty much the smaller size for a mobile unit, all the way up to an 8-foot hood. And you're not spending any more than $1,700, $1,800 for a hood system. And the hoods are great quality. I mean, there's nothing wrong whatsoever that we have discovered since dealing with Hood Mart, as far as the quality is concerned. Where the cost comes in is when you start to add the fire suppression system. So you actually pay more for the fire suppression system than the hood itself. Mm-hmm. Why is it so damn expensive, Tony?
Parts, they're specialized parts. I mean, you got to figure if you make
but it's
a
black
hood,
pipe.
That's pipe. It's the nozzles. It's the name on the nozzle. It's
there we go.
Oh, there's the name.
Figuring. I mean, just like anything, you know how it is. It is a craftsmanship, just like anything you guys make. It's not necessarily cookie cutter, So when you go to do it,
paying you to put it in is the best part of the cost of a fire suppression system. What I can't figure out is, I look at these when you put them in, and I'm like, okay, so it's black pipe, it's a few nozzles, it's a single tank or maybe a double tank. And then, there's some pulleys and some lines and stuff. I'm like, why in the hell does this cost $2,300?
Specialized product, man.
I think it's because it's mandated. I think it's because you have to have it.
You know how it is, like anything else, supply and demand. If you don't have a choice and you mandate something, the market's going to deem what it can get, just like in anything, whether it's insurance, a car, or computer, or whatever it may be. That's why an iPhone's $1,500 now. Everybody's got to have one. So, but in the name on it, obviously, as well, Apple. So, but,
Pixel 2 in my hand, have it for 5 years now.
You can't connect it to audio, but
Can't
it's cool. It's awesome, man.
Doesn't have an audio. Well, it's like an iPhone. It doesn't have an audio jack.
We're not bashing Google or anything. We do like Google.
Oh, we just got booted. Shit.
Everything turned off.
Well, there's a lot that goes behind what a lot of these companies do. They all go in and actually fight for, the users. They go in and testing, seeing what best coverages they can. You have constantly different, appliances and things like that hitting the food market, and they all have to be protected. Well, how do you protect them? By testing them. They set them on fire, and then once they figure out how to cover them, then they have to take them to the Nfpa to get them covered to be UL 300 classified. So there's a lot of overhead cost into why the components for the system cost what they do.
Now, see, that helps me. That eases my mind a little better. That eases
better.
my mind a little better. Because I never looked at it like that. You know what I mean? I just look at it from the pieces that I see go in, and I'm like, well, hell, you can buy those at the hardware store,
But you're missing the $1 million worth of research and development.
Right.
Yeah, I mean the basic parts that make things functional is not too expensive. It's the specific parts, you know, the tanks and the nozzles and the design and what goes behind that and the parameters. You have to design it in, and the support and everything else that kind of goes on behind the scenes that people don't realize why the markup's there.
So how stringent are, and this comes from, is the 3-inch rule on both sides of the hood?
Oh, it's pretty stringent. I'll be honest. It's more for hood ventilation than it is really anything, to be honest with you. I will tell you the kind of the way, there's ways around it. That's only if you have open sided on each hood. If you put a hood against the wall and you wrap the wall with stainless, that goes away. You can butt an appliance right up to that side of the wall to the end of the hood. But if you have an open hood on each side, you got to have that gap, if you will, from the end of the hood to the start of the first appliance. It's for air. It's for airflow. It's really what it boils down to. You got to have a certain amount of airflow to pull the heat, pull the grease, all that kind of stuff, because if you don't have the hood pulling the grease into it to your filter the way it's supposed to, then you have grease inside or outside of the hood area. Well, that poses a different fire threat than you normally would or wouldn't have in that particular area. So the risk of fire and extensive loss or spread of fire mitigates through there much easier if you have grease everywhere than where it's supposed to be.
So for you folks that are out there, just to clarify what we're talking about, technically you're supposed to have 3 inches on both sides of your hood prior to you getting to your first piece of equipment. So if you're laying out or designing your own mobile unit, whether it be a trailer or a truck, it's always got to add 6 inches, basically.
Pretty much, yep.
So whether that 6 inches is, you know, it's irrelevant because it has to be built into your lineage. So let's just say you have a, 36-inch flat top. And then you add in 2 fryers, 2 40-pound floor fryers from like a Vanco. They're 15.5 inches wide. So right there, you've got an additional 31 inches there. Let's say you do a charbroiler. So that's 15 inches wide. You put that in there. And then you add that 6 inches on. You're at 88 inches. So you take that 88, you divide that by 12. And that's going to give you the size hood you're going to have to purchase in order to accommodate all of that equipment. So if you're laying it out, that's just a good math technique that you should put on paper, and that'll give the exact size hood. You can go on the Hood Mart's website, you can pull it up, look at it. There's the price. And then the fire suppression system. Now, the average installation price is going to range depending on, several factors, but I can tell you from my personal experience and working with Tony that you're going to be between that. Well, I don't know. Do you want to share that information or not?
Call 513
Call
4268 and ask for Tony, and I'll tell you what we need to do for you.
There you go. So
no, I mean, you can have hood prices. In all honesty, Tony, I've installed hoods for $2,000 and I've installed them up to $8,000.
Yeah.
It depends on the appliances, which will deem the tank or tanks, which will deem how many nozzles, blah, blah, yada, yada. I hate to be repetitive, but it is designed with some open parameters. But that's why when we first started doing work together, I would beat you in the head like, hey, man, what do you got going in? What kind of appliances? Where are they going? That kind of a thing. So it's designed and it's open, but it's kind of specific as well. That's why I need that info.
Tony, that was 513-874-4268.
You got it.
Awesome, man.
That's our office number, by the way, and we're in Westchester.
And do it while it's fabricating instead of afterwards.
Please.
Absolutely.
Please.
Like Tony said, you'll have to remove stuff. We'll have to
we'll
move
do it,
stuff.
but
The labor is almost, I don't want to say doubled, but pretty close to that if you do it after the fact.
Yeah, if you're building right now and you're not doing it, you need to stop and think about what you're really doing here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think a lot of people, when they're laying out their truck or when they're designing it, and honestly, I'm not talking from somebody that has 30 years experience, because I don't. Every day that we're in our fabrication shop back there, we learn something new, a different way of doing something, or a more inexpensive way. I mean, just take the wheel chocks, for example.
Yeah.
I mean, there was if you have a fryer and it's got wheels on it, obviously it's going to roll. when you move. And so there's
Even
several
if it's
methods
locked.
that are used to lock that fryer down in place. And it's as simple as, you know, you can get an oversized L bracket and you can bolt it to your floor and bolt it to the fryer.
Not my favorite.
Yeah, it's not our way that we do it, because we want that fryer to move when you want it to move, because you're going to want to pull that thing out from time to time, clean behind it, you know, mop the floor.
Please.
We don't use diamond plate, by the
Please
way.
clean
Anybody
your
out
unit.
there, do not put diamond plate on your floor. So we use rubber coin flooring, commercial grade. It holds up. It's easy to clean, but we want that equipment to be able to move when you need to get behind it to move it. Well, they have these wheel chocks that you can buy, and they're $50 for a set of two.
$51.
Yes, they're expensive.
$51.
They're nice. They are nice.
They
cool.
are nice.
They
They're
look
nice.
really cool, man.
Yep.
You know, I mean, but if you figure you've got, let's say, 2 fryers, and then you've got a sandwich prep station, and then you've got another, you know, unit that has wheels. I mean,
$200.
there's $200 right there.
Just an anchor.
We'll take some video out in the shop this week, and we'll show you how we make them. But we can make the same premise, the same thing, with floor joists. So we use 2x4 floor joists.
What was that, like $2.50?
They're actually $1.23.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. And then we put a plate on the bottom of them and bolt those to the floors, and the wheels fit perfect inside those grooves. And so I can do an entire truck minus, you know, this $200 expense for
And buy
like
lunch.
$20.
And get lunch and be way under.
So, and we'll show you guys how to do that on our YouTube channel. It's a pretty easy hack, but it's something that we were just trying to figure out a way to keep this equipment locked in place. And when we came up with this solution, I was like, that works pretty good. So we want to share that with you guys out there in food truck fabrication land and let you guys take a look at it.
And
If you
from
want to
my
use it, use it.
standpoint, I'll tell you it's going to be great because, again, like we've talked, those nozzles for the fire suppression have to be in a specific spot,
in the right spot,
pointing in
Yep.
a specific position. So if you have these wheel chocks, you know right where it's going back, and it's going to be right in that same place every single time.
Yep, absolutely. So anyways, that's one of the hacks. And as you guys get more and more familiar with our YouTube channel, each and every week, we'll take your suggestions, we'll take your input. And if there's something out there that you need to learn about getting fabricated, you know, we'll take you in the shop and we'll show you how to do it. So, but the fire suppression system is something that I think everybody needs to consider adding. Obviously, James, they need insurance. If you want local, what is all of your contact information?
My phone number is 513-260-2659. And then if you just Google James Hobold, my farmer's website will pull up. That doesn't mean farmers will be your insurance carrier. It could be somebody else, but I represent, you know, a total of 15 carriers, a couple of food mobile trucks, concession stands.
So who are some of our food trucks that you have within your
Shout out to Mama's Boys, East Coast Subs, Carboneros. So those are the ones I think of right away. They're the ones that are always asking for certificate of insurances.
our brothers Matt and Josh, Mama's Boys? Hope you guys are tuning in tonight, listening to us shout out your name. We ain't seen you in a long time because you know, you guys took the winter season off, but glad to have you.
And they're actually an example. One of the things I helped them with COVID is, you know, Josh called us, hey, I'm going to be shut down for this time. And we stripped his policy way down and saved him a ton of money.
Cool. That's awesome.
Again, because local and been in the food industry for so long, I know how to kind of do these things. And then he calls me up and says, hey, I'm going to be on the road tomorrow. Let's ramp that back up.
Yeah, that's cool.
Monday morning, I'm off the road. Pump that back down.
It's like a switch, the insurance switch. Turn it on, turn it off.
And that's one of the, you know, the benefits that I can bring to the table, you know, is I've been in your guys' shoes for 25 years running restaurants. So I know the thin margins.
Right,
I know the hard work. I know when an ANSO system drops and the pain. And I also know when you have a, you know, a K5 and you knew where it was and somebody moved it.
Until something happened.
Yeah, until something happened. It's like, which is why, you know, the fire departments and that are going to mandate the the UL 300s and that.
So exactly what is this UL 300?
And then another standard that is just a guideline to go by to get certified for being a compliant suppression system. So that can be anything from the components and the let's say your hood seals to be compliant for UL 300 compliant. They have to have grease seals on the back end of them. So any penetrations in your hood, piping, whatever it may be, has to have a grease seal on it.
Yeah.
So anything you see when
Like
I
the
put
fire
that,
washers that have to come down.
yeah,
through.
Right.
like the little green washers.
And when you're buying
But you're
hood-
saying that has to be on
Yeah.
both sides of the.
No, it can only have to be on one. So I usually put them interior, but it doesn't matter.
That's
There's no,
exactly how we do.
what that does is mitigates grease from coming in through the hood through your duct seal, and again getting out
Mhm.
where it's not supposed to be. Just one example, but there's the testing that we spoke about earlier that requires and constitutes you for being UL 300 if you can hold to that standard. But there's numerous different things that will deem you to be UL 300 or not.
I need to give a big shout out to Scott from Angela's Curbside Cuisine. He helped us build the first truck. Actually, he built it. I was just his tool boy. But if it weren't for Scott sharing his knowledge of, he's built out several trucks of his own under the Angela's Curbside Cuisine moniker, and now they have the lakefront Angela's on the lake out at Lake Winoka restaurant that they started. But he came in and helped build the Mama Bear's mac and cheese food truck.
Oh, nice.
And it is one of the nicest trucks, I think, out on the city streets right now.
That's a beautiful truck.
They got a hell of a deal, first of all. I mean, it was a great foundation to start with. It was a heavy duty rescue vehicle for anybody looking for trucks.
It's a smooth
truck.
unit, man.
Yeah. They picked that truck up. I think it had 7,200 or 7,300 miles on it.
Yeah, it's
And they
awesome.
picked it up from a fire department up in Cleveland. They got absorbed by another fire department, and therefore this truck went on the auction. And they ended up bidding, I don't know, somewhere in the neighborhood of $19,000 or $20,000 for it. But it was a full-sized, truck that they picked up for like cheap. Uh-oh. That's the office. I don't know. My phone's ringing. That phone's ringing. iPad's ringing. You're not calling the right number, though, if you want to be on the show. But anyways, I wanted to give Scott a shout out because he kind of got me into the game of fabricating trucks, and we really were only going to do when we started.
Is that DeWine?
His Governor DeWine.
It was.
We were only going to do the
Stop
Mama Bear's
transmitting.
truck, and the whole purpose of, was, hey, why don't we do the Mama Bear's truck, and then we'll do a couple of these small trailers, and that'll get, some of the members that wanted to get in the business out of the cart scenario, out of the pop-up tent scenario, and on the street. And, I guess after we put that first truck out on the street, it was well liked, to say the least. And people started calling, asking, if we can do this, if we can do that. And yes, at this point, we have learned in the year and a half that we've been doing this a lot. And, we only get better. We find new materials. We find new ways of doing things. And I think with each and every truck, we get better at doing what we're doing, but we also find ways to cut costs for our clients so that they're not spending what some of these fabricators charge. I mean, honestly, some of these guys and the numbers that they come up with, I just look at that and I'm like, guess you guys want to make a profit.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm into making profit too, but that's like overkill. Especially when we know what goes into these things and the amount of time it takes. It's just a lot of it's time, the materials and the things that go into it. We don't mark any of that stuff up. We don't have to. we're just we're doing it just for the fabrication hours, really.
Well,
But,
plus too, do you want someone who just fabricates food trucks, or you want someone who used to own a food truck and fabricate it? Because
Yeah.
they've been there, they know.
Yeah, no. I mean, that's one thing I just explained to a couple that came in yesterday. I said, look, you're not talking to somebody who hasn't owned and operated one, because I have, and I've actually worked on them, and I know efficiency and how to make that little space that you're going to be in for 8 hours a day sometimes work to the best of your advantage, So if I decide that, maybe I need to change an outlet location to here, we need to have that flexibility. We're going to give you a raw blueprint, and it's going to show you where the majority of your stuff's going to go. But when we're starting to put this stuff together, and I think from the process standpoint, if you're going to be doing this over here and that needs to be done over there, you might want to have an extra outlet or a switch here, So we're going to take this one and move it down 4 feet or 5 feet or whatever, because it's going to suit you better. So, those are the types of things that we look for when we're fabricating, because like you said, James, we've been down that road. And
now, is it important to know when you're fabricating the store what the product they're going to be selling to help you kind of do the flow of the kitchen better?
Absolutely starts with their menu.
Besides budget, menus, the biggest thing, because we need to know what you're cooking and what equipment you're going to need to cook that on. You may think
and then think about what the flow needs to do as operation to make it more efficient.
There's some things that people they just don't think about. A lot of these things are 2 fryers versus 1 fryer. I'm fine with 1 fryer, but if you're heavy on, fried foods, or you do a larger piece of fried food, let's say fish or something like that, you need that ability to do it. You need that second fryer to dedicate to fish.
Yeah.
Right. Oh,
and you may not know that.
Volume and things like that.
Yeah, you're cooking fish,
may
you
not
better
know
have 2
that.
fryers.
Again, some of these people do not know that.
So chicken, for example, chicken wings. It's not a very profitable item, but everybody seems to think that they have the greatest recipe in the world for chicken wings.
And
their
they
sauce,
do. They all have fantastic recipes.
Yeah. And so if you're going to be doing chicken wings, predominantly you're going to purchase those from a wholesaler such as Restaurant Depot or GFS or somebody, and they're coming to you frozen. You can go right from a frozen bag of wings, and I've done it many times, straight into your fryer, but your oil temperature is going to drop down to a point in that fryer that you're not going to be able to put French fries in there in addition to those wings while those wings are cooking, because your fries are going to come out salty.
You've also watered your grease.
Right. And you watered your grease down. And so it is important to understand that if you haven't gone through that cooking process, you need to know what's going to happen if you have this on your menu and how to best store it, cold temperature, hot temperature, because, and there's a lot of things that we know that we can share that with people if they're willing to listen. Sometimes we get people in there, I know everything, and then 3 months later they're back and they're like, I need to do this because, and I'm like, well, we tried to tell you that from the beginning, but
It's okay.
It's okay. We'll fix it for you.
We've done it before. Yes,
Do you want your wings tasting like fries and your fries tasting like wings?
Right.
That's enough. Some things shouldn't be fried together.
But yeah, to your point, the menu's the biggest thing, because we really do need to know what you're doing. And that way we can recommend the right set of equipment for you and stage it the right way too. Because just because, you have the same equipment in a taco truck that you might have in a hamburger truck, you are going to use it differently. So that whole process of being on the line and, and spinning around and doing the job in there is vital to knowing, what piece of equipment go in there. So your menu's huge.
Yeah.
Our fire suppression systems, I don't know how many times I change because one chef comes in and changes the lineup from the way it was because he or she wants it this way. And then they don't care that it'll cost a few $1,000s to just change it.
Right.
That's the way I want my equipment. It's like,
and the nozzle's not where it's supposed to be.
Yep.
And on a food truck, it's not as big as a regular kitchen, so we can just throw a salamander in there. It's not how it works.
You got it.
We'd love to, but it's just not how it works all the time. So.
Now, we did learn that we just started to add just an extra end on our propane lines to leave it open. Nice. We just put a cap on it now. Yeah. That way, if you do ever want to add something, down the line, there's a way to do it that's not going to require you to disassemble your entire propane line.
Well, that was we were thinking ahead.
We did that for somebody because they're like, I think we will probably buy a salamander at some point. I'm like, Well, why don't we go ahead and put that on the end in case you get a salamander? And then from that point, I just said, you know what? We're going to leave them all open-ended and just put a cap on them. And that way, anytime somebody wants to add something, they can do it.
It's nice and easy.
Yeah.
Yep.
And when they
So-
come back to you, it's a much easier job.
Oh, yeah. 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 I don't have to take the whole thing apart. So it makes
it
it
much
nice.
easier.
But anyways, we just want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. This is our second episode. We plan to do these every Tuesday. I think we might have to recruit the gnome for one more Tuesday to get us through the technical aspect. But if we just get up from right now and just turn this shit off, we'll just come back next Tuesday and just turn it back on.
Just don't touch it.
anything.
Don't touch
Don't
anything.
touch it. We really, I thank you, honestly, because if you've never been on Cincy Brewcast or Drinking with the Gnome, please go on to the podcast. He's live every Monday.
Every Monday, if it's called the Weekly Pint for that one though.
The weekly.
I've got like 900 shows that I do every week.
So extremely knowledgeable when it comes to the podcasting scenario, which is why we recruited him. Andrew and I have been friends for, 5 years now, 6 years, something like that, ever since we started the Brew City Sausage Company. And he started Cincy Brewcast with Mike. And we've been friends ever since. So I appreciate you coming in and working your technical magic, because if we wave to you guys on YouTube right now, that's only because the gnome hooked
If
us
it's
up.
actually working. much like you guys learn a lot from every time you fabricate something. Every podcast that you do, you're going to figure something else out.
Yeah, which is why we're only a few minutes late tonight getting started. But, hey, we're here, and hopefully you guys have learned something tonight. So we plan to share the knowledge every Tuesday. So we appreciate y'all, and we are going to check out, and we'll see y'all next Tuesday. And please tune in, because we have some pretty exciting news for next Tuesday. We're not going to say what it is until the ink is dry on the paper this week. But
That'd be awesome.
Yeah,
It's going to be awesome.
if you guys do tune in, you'll get some exciting news for next Tuesday that's going to deal with our local food truck scene. So we appreciate you guys being a part. Tone, James, thanks for sitting in tonight.
Thank you guys.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
And we're going to check out with you guys, and we will see you all. We'll see y'all next Tuesday. Be safe out there and treat each other right.
Good night.
Good night.